Hello, good morning, and happy Wednesday. It's been a while since I streamed. I spent the last couple mornings working on some of the back-end type stuff with Brooksville's platform. I almost got everything completed and it all working, and I just sort of like the last little bits I still need to do. But instead of taking another day to work on that, I decided, let's just do a stream. And I think I got through the most dangerous parts already, so I feel decently confident working on continuing to work on this with all of you. But I suppose first we can do a sort of like a deployed architecture review. Where's my? Oh, I don't have my browser up. That's why. All right. So we got our design here. I don't know if this would be the best place to put the architecture. I think this might end up being a little bit harder to sort of draw in. So let's go back to Envision, which I don't have this in here. All right. Sorry, everybody. I'm gonna have to turn off dark mode so I can see how to exit out of this. So first of all, do you now have a dark mode? I suppose I could have looked through their new features, but not seen any settings. Okay. Not worried too much about that. Let's go ahead and create a new frame here. I don't. That's just a list of frames. I create a frame here. This will be AWS picture. So what we have set up here. Previously, we had already done our sort of front end. I actually have a list of icons that I can use. Let's see if I can find those. So, our front end apps, the one built on u.rs, that is compiled in GitHub. I don't think I have GitHub. No, I don't have the GitHub icon. So we'll start like just once it gets into the AWS ecosystem for this. So it goes through our CI/CD on GitHub using GitHub Actions. It compiles it, and then it also saves that into S3. S3 is what? Storage? Amazon. Let's see, we've got DFS, S3 on Outposts. That doesn't seem right. Oh, simple storage service. That's what I want. That is very small. I probably want the not 32 to a 64. That's, oh, I am zoomed in way, okay. Let's try this again, except now zooming in at 100%. Sure. 96% is 103% is fine. All right, so new frame. Fill the screen. This will be AWS architecture, ignoring the previous AWS architecture of the planning. So like where we are right now with things, essentially. So our code comes up from CI/CD and gets stored onto AWS S3. Then I have Cloud Front, which if I search, here is AWS Cloud Front. Cloud Front will take in and serve up all of these as a website. But it does this through edge locations all throughout the world. I'm on the cheapest tier, which means basically North America and Europe. And I think it might even just be Western Europe. I'm not completely sure, but it's not too many locations, but a decent number of them. So I essentially have not paid any money for this whatsoever. The storage is like less than a penny to store the website up because it's such a small piece of data, and I haven't deployed new versions of the apps in a little bit, but even when I do, it's again such a small piece of data that it's like a blip on the radar. CloudFront, CloudFront charges me when people visit the website, and it serves at a cheaper price than it would if I'm getting it directly from S3. And so therefore I set the caches to as long as possible, and therefore get as much value out of that as I possibly can. That being said, not too many people are going and visiting the website yet, so it's not terribly surprising. I'm not really paying very much for this yet. Okay, so there's this. There are options that I could hook up Lambda functions to this and do server-side rendering and other things, so it's not just for static site sort of servers, but anything else that's sort of like front-end or files related that I want to like serve up and have a cache on. CloudFront seems to be good on the Amazon side so far. Okay, next up. This got me through quite a bit, but then the most recent issue that we're working on, it has to do with having like actual data in a database. So I needed to have a database, which meant I also needed to set up Cloudflare and CloudFront. We had this entire thing sort of set up here. We've made major changes to it. So we have our VPC. So let me see. We have outside the VPC is our S3 bucket. We have CloudFront. And then what are you? You are, certificate manager and Route 53. Yep, these are all true. I have multiple security groups now. So let's fix this up a little bit. Is this just an image now? Can't I edit you? I froze my browser. Great. Esitsu, hello. You missed the stream notification. Yeah, I also did I guess I tweeted out, but I didn't do any other like special notifications for it. So, but hey, you found me anyways. Hello, and awesome to have you here. We're talking about the AWS sort of architecture stuff that I've been working on. All right, well, completely frozen. That's. Oh, yeah, you're really frozen. Hold on. Let's try loading this again. All right, well, it didn't like me looking there, so we're gonna have to redo that a little bit. So, we do have VPC. Just want a simple VPC. Oh, are you gonna call it something like virtual private cloud? Yep. So, wait, Stream sees Screeps. Oh no, I forgot to update it. I didn't change the title or the game. Man, I take like one day, I take like a couple days off and I forget everything about streaming. I'm sorry, everybody. Let me fix that really quickly. I'm gonna be confused later on when I like go to like archive the video. I'm like, why is it saying Screeps? Okay, so change data. We are, let's see, building a web app and hosting on AWS. Building a web app. Not Screeps Arena. Software and game development. And web development. Done. Okay. Sorry about that. Also, hello, stacking. So yeah, there we go. Fixed it totally. Much better. Hosting on Aws. Hosting on Aws. Autocomplete. Autocomplete doesn't care about AWS or software development. All right, so where were we? Basically, so this is outside of any VPC, as it were, which is sort of very interesting because S3 actually is like within regions. So I suppose this is also like might be good to sort of put in here is that we have a region of US East. US East 1. And that's where a bucket is. That's where Cloud Front sits. And that's all fine and good. Now, then we have this VPC, which is now going to be another thing inside of here. I only have a single VPC for this. Perhaps I might create more if I want to create like review applications or other things. I can create an entirely new VPC for this automatically. I guess I don't need the text for that. This will be just VPC for this. And I have 2 regions. So for each of these regions, we're doing, it's just basically region 1 and 2. And my subnets are also essentially tied. Is it region or is it, well, it's not regions. It's, what am I thinking of? Availability zones. That's what it is. 2 availability zones. There's local zones. Oh, I don't see availability. AZ. Oh, that's not too bad. How about subnet? You have subnet? No. Oh, that's too bad. Okay, so basically, we have AZ1 and AZ2. Now, internally, I'm sort of describing this as my AZ1 is my primary, and then AZ2 is my sort of backup. And even if I'm within a single just region, having multi-availability zone would protect me from any downtime from like 99.9% of the things that can go wrong. For example, the other day, it was like 1 or 2 weeks ago, US East 2 had a power outage. I'm not exactly sure what caused the power outage. It doesn't really matter. But they had a power outage that affected Lambda, affected EC2. Just taking EC2 out pretty much takes out almost everything that they had. But it wasn't like 100% of their stuff. It was just like a big chunk, which meant that your Lambdas were sometimes working, sometimes not working, which is kind of sucky when that happens. That did not happen on US East 1. It did not happen in different availability zones within US East 2. It was just one of them. Unfortunately, it was the one that we were set up on. Going multi-AZ is really important eventually when you want a good sort of backups or like to always be on. But it also increases the cost because I have to duplicate our data. So for example, I'm going to have a database, and I think now we can sort of add the stuff in here. I have a database to RDS. That sits inside of this availability zone 1. I do not replicate this inside of availability zone 2. I did decide to eventually go with a hosted database because I found a really cheap option that's only going to cost around $12 per month. And that's going to be a good option for a while until eventually I need to like scale it up and actually have like a decent CPU and other stats on it. Right now, it's basically a potato that Amazon has somewhere in their building. So I have our RDS sitting here. I have and while that's all good and set up, I also have security groups to sort of connect into these. Security group. Do we have security group? No. Well, that's too bad. What about SG? No. Okay, so no security groups. No security group icons. All right, so this is a I do have like technically these are public subnets. The best thing that I could do for privacy and security would be to throw my database into a private subnet and then have connections going between there for what I'm working on. That being said, I am trying to be very cheap. So instead of doing, I'm allowing it to have access out to the internet, which means that it needs to be a public subnet. I do set the bit on it to say, do not make it publicly accessible. So it's only accessible from other services within the this availability zone. Never let your database have public facing. That's like the worst idea ever. Yes, it's like it's good only for like testing purposes, where you're like, okay, is it up? Is it running? Let me just go ahead and see. But then you turn that off ASAP. And AWS does a pretty good job at letting you say like, okay, it's in a the other thing is like a publicly available, like a public subnet does not mean that everything is public by default, unless of course you tell it to, which I did not. So not everything gets a public IP address by default in this subnet. I have to explicitly tell it, give this public. Yeah, public doesn't mean it can be routed to. And I think that's something that people don't necessarily understand. And Amazon sort of, like their best practices are really best practices for companies that have money. Kind of makes sense, right? They want to charge people money. And so like, this is the best practice for a company after you have enough money to like pay for it. So I have a database here. It is private, but and it can't be routed to from us. On top of that, I don't have a the security group isn't sort of set to be able to connect to it either. But we can get to that later. Okay, so next up would be setting up ECS and Hasura, because while I could put everything onto EC2 for this, ECS essentially spins up an EC2 instance for me, but because it's EC2 and because it may or may not be shared or, you know, just whatever you want it to be, they give you a 66% discount on the EC2 instances that you're using. So it's a lot cheaper than if I would just use an on-demand instance of EC2. And especially since I don't know exactly how long I want this up for, I don't want to like reserve it for like a year or two at like the cheapest rate to get the equivalent same discounts on it. So we're gonna set up, ECS. ECS anywhere. Can I do cluster? EMR cluster, that's not the same thing. Let's do ECS. So then over here we have, this is ECS. Now ECS, which is Elastic Container Service, this spins up essentially, so we can have a cluster inside of this. So essentially, I'm gonna have my database just sort of sitting out here. Then I'm gonna have another box because, you know, why not? This is my ECS sort of everything. And we're gonna have a cluster. So another box. Okay, so we have the Brooks Builds cluster. A cluster is just really, especially in the context of ECS, is a collection of services. And a service is really just a, think of it as a wrapper or just a way to describe a individual singular Docker container. Now that's not completely true because you can have like multiple Docker containers that work together as part of a service, but you want them all sort of like as a single cohesive unit. So you might have like 3 Docker containers that like connect together, but maybe you don't really need to worry about that too much. So I have a single service right now. I'm doing, nope, undo, stop. So inside of here, this is my Hasura service. And then finally, I have, do I have like a Docker? I do. So we could throw a gigantic Docker icon in here. And so that is now a Docker image. Now this is a Docker image that I'm grabbing off of Docker Hub. So I don't need to pay to put the, like to store an image onto like EC, Elastic Container Registry, ECR. So I don't need any of that stuff. I'm just using Docker Hub for this. Plus I could just put things like a free Docker image on Docker Hub as well, and it would host directly out of there. I think they charge something like $1 per month per image or something like that, which I was not super thrilled about paying, so I want to avoid doing that as much as possible. Now inside of here we have I just have Hasura hanging out. I don't have an icon for them yet. Hasura is connecting to our database, and it's using because it's inside of the availability zone. I can basically have a private IP address to here. Now I was saying, like, I told it to give like me a public IP address for testing purposes, and I eventually got it to the point where I was able to connect in. It's a combination of like just settings on all of these things, plus a proper security group updates. But then I was trying to like shut that off so I can have like no public access to Hasura, and then we're gonna go through a what is it called? A load balancer. Because with ECS, you need something called service discovery to have this entire thing work out for you. And I was looking up different methods of service discovery. There are no real free alternatives to this. So I could set up like here's like a public IP address directly into Hasura. Not really all that different than what I'd be doing with a load balancer. I mean, I'd still only be like opening up like specific ports through the security groups, so it would be like, decently secure. But if this crashes for some reason, the service will restart the task, which is great. Okay, so the task gets restarted, but every time that happens, I get a new public IP address. So if I were to do that, I would need to then set Route 53 to point at this new IP address and just sort of like constantly update that, which is an issue. Route 53 DNS stuff like takes a minimum of an hour, and I think I have it set to like a day for my propagation. The reason I have it set for a day is, cheapness. I pay 50 cents per month for that. I can go for like have it update only once every week to pay even less for it. But I figure like that's a good sort of like, especially while developing, that's a good sort of trade-off. Okay, so what this means is that you connect to the database, you need secrets because I need this to be able to like know exactly what how to connect in. So it needs a username, it needs a password, it needs a URL. At first, I tried using environment variables that we set up inside of our task definition. We can actually go into code here and take a look at what that looks like. Right, I put that in here now. This was a failed experiment. I don't actually need that. It doesn't actually do anything. Okay, so basically, what I could do is I can create environment. Actually, it's a good way to show it. You can create environment variables for the Docker container here, where I can say, okay, whatever the environment variable name is, and here's the value of this. And I was using Pulumi to say like, okay, give me a secret environment variable. So like store this, which then gets stored in the encrypted in the GitHub repo, which is okay. It's not great. It's encrypted, so that's good at the very least. But like also, but I was experimenting with it and seeing whether or not like, hey, can I get this to work? And yes, I could definitely get it to work. But Amazon tells you this is a terrible practice. Don't do it. And like at the same time, it's like, I just don't feel very good about this. That being said, it worked. The real way is to use the secrets. And so AWS actually has a secrets service where you can basically store a key value for them, and then they charge like 40 cents or so per secret per month. And then they also they give you like 10,000 retrievals of that per month or day or something like that. And then they pay for more, and they're like, yeah, no. We're going with the S3 route. So I have another bucket, and this one is private. So nobody else can read it. I have a very specific policy that only this Hasura task can connect to and read the specific folder from this bucket. Everybody else is private on that. And I suppose I can also add you in here. So this is where my .env files are, which I have not added to GitHub, so it's in my gitignore. And basically I just put in, here's how to connect to our database in environment variables for this. So if I ever need to change the database credentials, I can do that really quickly, update the environment variables here, and then tell the Hasura task to restart. So that's basically how I have like secret type stuff. This is essentially free because an environment variable file, especially for what I'm doing, is incredibly small. It's 3 lines. It's like just plain text. It's a UTF. I don't need that much. The documentation for AWS is like basically screaming, saying, do not do this. Use their secrets manager instead. And it's like, okay, no. Maybe one day when I'm making more money, I'll switch over and use the more paid services for that. But right now, this is fine. That being said, a bucket that has clear text and, you know, environment variables for getting to production access to like services like a database is a security vulnerability. And it is a vector that somebody could come in and take advantage and get access to things. So it is a bad thing. It is not great, but it's also, it's like I understand what the risks are, and like I'm going with it right now. Okay, so next up is how to get access to Hasura, and I almost got this set up and working. I just I haven't gotten the finalized part of it yet. So right now, let's see if we can find where. Oh, I want load balancer stuff. Load balancer. Load? Yeah, okay. I want application load balancer. That's what I want. Oh, you only have 48 side. Well, that's interesting. So I'm going to be using an application load balancer for this. An application load balancer sits inside the VPC, but outside of the availability zones. In fact, we can almost argue that it spans across both of these. So it sits, let's say, here, and it has like sort of a connection into each. AZ here. I want you to be that one. There we go. So this load balancer is aware of both of these. I don't really have anything spun up in AZ2. So this is, I'm also sort of like labeling this as my primary subnet and then my backup subnet. Nothing's in here right now. Okay, so the load balancer is going to basically be a my public front for everything. I only have a single Hasura task, which I told it like target number of containers to be running is 1 at all times. It does do not true red-green development deployments, but it does like it basically does like a always-on mentality where when I deploy a new version of like, let's say Hasura or update it, it keeps the old one on, marks it as deprecated, spins up the new one, and if it passes health checks, then it shuts off the previous one. Otherwise, it shuts off the new one, and basically the old one stays up, which is really nice. Each of these load balancers connects to a target group. Now, target group is going to be inside of an AZ. There's no target. Okay, how about group? Oh, there's no target group. Okay. And target group is essentially going to be the this is essentially the service discovery that I was mentioning before. So the load balancer is aware of the target group. And this Hasura service is aware of the target group. And so as the service spins up new containers, new tasks, it says, okay, I have a new task, it's healthy, here's the IP address of it, and it basically sends a message to our target group and says, new service This is its IP address. This is its port. This is just its information. The target group doesn't care what this is. It basically says, I'm listening for things on this port at this IP address. If you have something for me, here's how I can do a health check on it, so I can independently verify that it's going well, and then it will now make itself available for the load balancer. So the idea is that I hit with a load balancer. So let's say I want access to the database. I can send. It's doing through GraphQL. So I do a post request to our target, a load balancer, checks the target group to find where Hasura is, and sends us there. Hasura then itself does the query, so connects to the database, gathers information, gathers the data, rolls it up into whatever I want, and then responds with that back out to me. So my database is private, my Hasura is public, and routed through my load balancer. I can also do things like put on HTTPS here at this point, along with a certificate, and that way it's all HTTPS traffic, all encrypted outside of the VPC. Let's see, what else? Any other finalized things to discuss in there? I don't think so. I was at a meetup last night, and I talked with some I talked with an AWS person, and then I also talked with just some other people that have been dealing with this type of thing at their jobs, and it's been a we got onto the topic of tutorials and how many good tutorials there are out there on AWS, and surprisingly not too many. There's some companies that have been doing the professional big tutorials, and then there's just a bunch that you can buy on Udemy, Lynda, that kind of stuff. And the guy working at AWS was not impressed by the courses that he found that he spot checked on Udemy, for example. He felt that some of them were wrong, had bad information, and I guess that's this is an opportunity. I might be able to do a here's how to here's how to set up a AWS architecture for your personal project to spend as little money as possible. Here's how to spin up an AWS architecture to run a small business off of. Here's how to set up an architecture to run a small business that's actually making money off of. I think those are 3 different targets that I could maybe make a do a course on. I'm feeling a lot more confident in actually how this stuff get deployed and what we should be doing for it. AWS for the sane normal person, essentially. Yeah, it'd be basically you don't just ignore everything else. This is this will get you started in a sane way that you won't hate your life in 6 months. Or at least if you do hate your life, it's not going to be because of this. All right, so the last thing that I need to work on here is getting my target groups working. So looking at my target group in my other window, it is currently, where is it? Target groups aren't in the summary list. That's too bad. Okay, so that's down under load balancers, target group. Okay, so I have this Hasura target group, which is sitting in, I think I called it the load balancers. So I created the ECS Hasura target group here. I found out that Hasura has this health Z route that you can hit with a just a get request, and it will return a 200 OK if everything is happy and good, which is really nice. Also not documented officially. I had to find that through their GitHub conversation. They're like, oh yeah, just set your health check to that. And everybody's like, shouldn't you add this to the docs? All right, so what I want to do next is get this to actually work, because if I go into it on my dashboard, I have it is constantly sort of being registered and like just drained. So it's not because it's not working in our ECS task in the service. That's actually working just fine. The problem is that the service is sending a message to this target group and saying, I have a Hasura implementation for you. Go ahead and register it and get it up and going. It's then hitting it with this health Z and getting a failed response, and so therefore saying, well, you're not running. And so it sends a message back to the service and say, nope, you're unhealthy. This is terrible. You need to try again. And so it deregisters itself and tells, and the service is like, well, okay, I thought I was good, but whatever. And then it restarts itself and tries again. So that's happening over and over and over again. What I think that I need to do is create a security group that allows the target allows the load balancer essentially to communicate with ECS. So that would be in my security groups. Where is that? Security groups. I was playing around with these different things. Also, my IP address is constantly changing. I discovered that by accident. Apparently, I can't, like, I've been having a lot of trouble just saying, like, hey, allow it from my IP address only. It just constantly changes, which sucks. And makes it really hard for me to, like, lock it down to myself. So, like, I basically have this Hasura admin security group that I allow from anywhere, and then just, like, turn it off. And just, like, remove the security group from the service, which it's not very happy. But okay, so I actually want to create a new security group here. So export function, create so this is going to be my load balancer to Hasura. So essentially this is let's do ECS Hasura sort of like security group. I don't think I need to take anything in. Well, is that true? No, I do need to take something in. I need to do something very similar to what we have here. I need to take in security groups, which is going to be an array of security groups. And I need to take in a VPC. And we're going to return a security group. All right, so we're going to call this the ECS Hasura security group. All right, what do you need? So description. This is allow access from the load balancer to the Hasura ECS service. Egress. So what is allowed outbound from essentially Hasura? And generally speaking, we just want everything. It's going to be an array of rules, and I just want a single rule. So we're just going to do from port 0 is just basically everything at this point. Protocol is a -1 as a string, of course, because it's like all protocols. To port 0, and our CIDR blocks. Now, I do this one a decent amount, so I'm going to create a constant up here. So const, this is everywhere CIDR block. So you're going to be, oh, you'll figure it out. So you're going to be 0.0.0.0, so /0. Everything. If you're not familiar with how CIDR blocks work, it's a network thing, essentially a network mask thing, where I'm just saying, okay, here's like what IP addresses, like a range of IP addresses it could be. By doing this, it's literally every single possible IP address that it could possibly do. If I were to do something like 10.0.0.0/0, it would say, okay, let's go with something more interesting. Let's do like 24. This would say, okay, I want 10.0.0.1 through, or .0 through 255. I want all of those just within this last dot here. And it's all binary math. It's all very interesting. If you're interested in that, or you want to do more networking stuff, highly recommend you look into it. And if you're like me, who's forgotten how most of it works usually, I don't really bother relearning it over and over again. What are you upset about? A string is not sent. Oh, right. You're an array of strings. Okay, so that's that. Egress. Okay, so what's next? Ingress. So what is everything allowed from? And so this is the important one. Who can actually connect into our Hasura? Well, I only want traffic allowed from my my load balancer. No one else is allowed to talk to it. So that is, it looks exactly the same thing. So we're going to do this from port. I want, now this is not from port like it's like from somebody's computer port. This is a range of ports allowed in. So Hasura there's a couple different ports that we're potentially like working on. So 8080 is one of the ports for the GUI. I might want to like actually have this let's say actually wait, I don't want this on CIDR blocks. I need do you have something else here for me? What's the thing I do for? Oh, this one is it. Security groups. There we go. Okay, so my ingress for security groups is going to be it's security group IDs. Okay, security groups. We're gonna map through them. Okay, I still need to do from port to port. So I want 8080. I want protocol. This is TCP. Who are you services and what do they do? Yeah, it's kind of what the target group does, doesn't it? 2-port 8080. So I'm only opening up with this specific rule a single port. Is there anything else? Cider blocks. I am not putting a cider block rule on this one. I'm basically saying anything that also has that security group attached to it is allowed in, which is how I'm matching and getting anything, because I don't know what the IP address of the load balancer is. That's probably just going to constantly change on me. Description. So this is allowing sort of like the admin, allowing console traffic from the load balancer. And that's it. So there's another port that I might want to add in. It wouldn't be port 8080. It would be something else, which I forget exactly what it needs. But I'll worry about that later. It's fairly easy to add more ingress rules. Is there anything else we want to add in here? So like name of the security group? Sure. This is load balancer to Hasura. Oh, and the VPC ID. So that's my VPC, that ID. By default, Pulumi constantly assumes that you have the default VPC installed, and then just is like, couldn't find a VPC. I didn't know where to put this security group, so good luck for you. All right, so if I run this will create the new security group, but I kind of need to know, I need a security group on the on my load balancer. So I need to load balancer. Here's security groups coming in from this. Okay. So in my index, I've been slowly like migrating and like putting things into their own files to like make them actually like make sense. But okay, so I create my load balancer. And my security groups are, what is this? No, those are subnets. Security groups are the third thing. My Hasura admin security group. So technically right now it's like allowing in everyone. I would really love to just say like just my IP address, or at least like some way to lock it down to me. But okay, that's great. So the Hasura admin security group comes in to this load balancer, which then means I need to attach that same security group to the other one. So do const, this is going to be the Hasura. Oh, I think I already have that, don't I? I think I put that up here. I have another set of security groups just sort of floating around in here somewhere. Here it is. Hasura Task Security Group. And so here is the Hasura Admin Security Group, so it's the same one. So that should allow traffic in only from that security group, which the Hasura Task Security Group, I need to like rethink, like make sure that this is set up like correctly for this. because this other security group, because I need multiple security groups. I forgot. Is there a security group icon? No, there is not. That's too bad. Let's do security group. Those sit inside of the VPC. In fact, I think they sit inside of the availability zone too. So they're, let's make you nice and small. They're basically just sitting out here. So we have a security group connecting to essentially the Hasura service. And I want this security group also connecting to our load balancer. And then I want another security group that is connecting to the load balancer. And then just like put down here, the internet. And so I need to make sure I have these set up correctly. So I, from the internet, come and hit the load balancer, and it hits this security group. The load balancer then goes through its own security group to get to Hasura. So basically just like two checks that happens. I don't want to accidentally allow Hasura access directly from the internet, which is something that potentially could happen if somebody got the IP address of whatever the task was at that moment. To be accurate, there is a third security group on this database here. And we only allow in from this task, or rather this service. As you can see, the lines get a little bit weird. I haven't figured out a good way of doing architecture diagramming that just doesn't look like a nightmare. Like all of the architecture diagrams that I've seen also end up looking like nightmares. So I don't like, this is a simple like one, and it's already starting to get overwhelming. So things that I'll have to like figure out how to properly do. But all right, so probably after work, I'm probably gonna continue working a little bit on this stuff where I'm just sort of making sure and double checking my security groups. I need to get my load balancer set up and properly connected to the task. Once I do that, I think that's the last thing. Oh no, there's a one more. I need a Route 53. I need Route 53 to point to this load balancer, and then I need a certificate. Once I create those, I will have everything that I need to connect to HTTPS to get access to Hasura, which then gets access to the database. I could then point my code, my view.rs code at this, and then just hit play and go from there, and everything would be happy at that point. So that's the plan with all of this. Basically took up my entire time talking about this, which is not super not super surprising. So if you did watch this VOD and you're interested, or if you're just live here and you're interested in learning more about this, let me know. I'm sort of like collecting unofficial sort of like interest in like, what do people want to learn more about, like this specific type of architecture, and like how to just do this, how to build something like this, or would it be a different type of architecture? My plan would be to do it on AWS because they do have that generous free tier, but I wouldn't be opposed to just sort of doing it on Azure or DigitalOcean or Google Cloud or any of the other sort of like clouds. The general idea is going to be the same regardless of which cloud services you're going to. But with that, I think instead of like getting into too much code or verifying this, I'm actually feeling a little bit tired and my throat is starting to hurt. So I'm gonna go ahead and shut off the stream for right now. I'll continue working on this a little bit later today, and then tomorrow we'll see where we are with it. We may be still working on this if I haven't finished it. Otherwise, we'll be back onto code. So with that, thank you so much for hanging out. Thank you for listening to me just chat and describe AWS architecture stuff. And I hope that you have a great rest of your day. See you next time. Bye.